it seemed like everyone had been walking this path for some time. They had already been doing a lot on themselves, but we all started and we all were kind of sitting there like, oh, wow, I still have a long way to go, or I still have all these areas I haven't even seen in myself before that I need to work on. And that's incredibly valuable, right? Being able to sit in humility for a little bit and be like, oh, right, okay, I'm not perfect, I'm not God yet. Let me get back to work on the day to day. I think that can often come as a surprise. I think there were certainly elements of it that surprised me where I was like, damn, am I still really being triggered by this stuff? Am I still actually working on this? I thought I had kind of resolved some of it or moved past it, but a few of the prompts, a few of the lessons, just some of the writing exercises, they bring that up so nicely. The continual realization that you are always the source of your own problems, like just full stop, and having to sit with that for a second and then actually just keep writing about it and be like, damn it, like this is all the ways like I'm not being true to myself, I'm not living up to what I could be, like just all these. And you have to sit there and just kind of take it, and then you have to show up again next week and be like, all right, here we go again, like let's go let's go back down into the fire. And it's immensely valuable. I think that's why we all showed up to actually do this. But yeah, it's still incredibly difficult. You're like, no, no, I can't be like this. Or just being able to take that like third person perspective and say like, oh, that thing I was always blaming that group or that person or that event for, oh yeah, that was my fault too. And having to sit with that and be like, yeah, okay, great work, Eric.
I recognize that I have a choice, and this has become more clear since doing the course over the past couple of months. I've recognized that I have given up my agency and I've chosen kind of to play small for a long time. I got to a point where it's like that wasn't acceptable anymore. And like even though I was aware that I was doing it, I didn't want to take responsibility was the words that I was using. I got to the point where it's like, you know what, Ben, it's time to trust. I know that I'm supported. I know that I have a community. I know that I have the ability to respond appropriately, even if it's confusing as hell, whatever's going on in the moment, then I know I'll find the path forward. I've made a decision to follow this path. And now the suffering and the needless meandering and wondering and fear really has started to crumble away. And it's extremely empowering and really, I'm really grateful for it. It's really extraordinary. I feel like I've been waiting for this moment for a long time.
The blind spot has something to do with noticing that I want you to be different so that I can be more comfortable. And if I only focus on how to accomplish my comfort by changing you, I'm missing the biggest part of my growth. When you actually start to get these practices in place and you start to see the increased ability, there's two things that happen. One, there's an exhilaration from that added component, but there's also some stress of, oh my God, this is a lot. It's taking a lot of my focus and I'm burning through my glucose. And if I'm not paying attention to when I'm exhausted, I can feel like it was so much easier, let me just take the blue pill again. I'll go back to the old way. That was a lot less work.
Maybe just that there are other people that are sort of in the same place as I am, because I felt I was alone. We all go in different places, but there's been a huge amount of similarity, because it makes me not feel quite as isolated.
It's one of those things that reveals itself to be nonsensical the second you hold it up for examination. But when you have that idea, you never examine it, right? Yeah. The idea of knowing everything. Like, of course I wasn't going to know everything. I was barely going to know anything. Yeah. And then the more, that's the other thing, right? The more you think you know, if you think you know it, then the less prepared you are for what you don't know, which is still most stuff.
I noticed with the group, people sort of starting to gravitate towards their roles within the group. Not roles, but what they're naturally progressing into being. It's almost like just because the fact that we have a group, it's almost dropping people right into the deep end of how are you going to present yourself to a bunch of other people that you don't know and talk about deep stuff. It's almost like it's forcing people to be more of themselves, because if they're faking anyway or not being sincere with themselves, you've got more eyes looking at you. When I first got to the calls, the group calls, and I was immediately sort of unconscious or subconsciously assessing the group dynamics, like, okay, where do I stand here in terms of like turning it into a game of levels? Like, am I higher or lower than this person, further forward or whatever? It's like old driving mechanisms kind of coming up to try their thing again, but now they're not working as well because they've sort of recognized that they're there, and so they have less power over, or a grip over. Instead of arising and then occupying the whole consciousness, they're just like trying to get in, and it's like, no,